In this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to get going with Google SketchUp. Specifically, we're going to model a house, and this is for a Windows machine. So to get started, we want to get all of our toolbars the way we're going to use them. So I'm going to start up here at the View menu and select Toolbars. And I'm going to select a few of these that I'm going to use frequently. Specifically, I like Camera. I like the Large tool set, Styles, and Views. And I might move these just a little bit. You don't have to have these same things. You can always access them later, but I just like to have all those handy. All right, so what we want to do is model a house, and we're going to start with the footprint of the house and kind of extrude that up and then build a roof and populate the inside of the house. So to start, I'm going to get rid of this guy. So to get rid of that guy, I'm just going to click on it and hit the delete key on my keyboard, and it disappears. Notice there's three axes here, and we're going to refer to them by color. There's a red axis, a green axis, and a blue axis that goes up. So to make this footprint, this is going to be a straightforward house. I'm going to use the rectangle tool, which I can use this right here. And if I mouse over and pause for a moment, it'll show me that it's a rectangle tool. I can also just hit R on my keyboard, and it automatically selects that. So that's what's called a hotkey. I'll click once in the origin, kind of drag out in the orientation I'm going. And if you look down here in the right-hand corner, it's got the dimensions of this rectangle. I'm not going to try to put those exactly where I want. I'm literally going to type. So I haven't clicked a second time. I just clicked on the origin, and I'm going to just type 30, and specifically feet, which is the single quote, comma, 20 feet, because I want a 30 by 20 rectangle. I hit that, I say enter, and there it is. Next, I want to be able to see my whole rectangle, so I can click on this zoom extents, and it kind of pops it out the whole way. If I want to change the way I'm looking at things, I often use this orbit tool. I can click and drag. If using a mouse, I can use the mouse wheel to kind of zoom in and out, and I find that to be quite helpful. All right, my next goal here is to make the walls. The walls of this house are going to have a certain thickness. I'm going to specify that as 6 inches. And so the way I'm going to do that is use the offset tool. And I can find that over here, offset, which I can click, or I can just hit the letter F on the keyboard, and I can click. Notice when I mouse over the rectangle, it gets that kind of dotted effect versus off where there's no effect. So I want to click there. If I move the mouse, you can see it's making this rectangle that's offset a certain amount. And again, if I look down here, it's telling me the distance, but I want to specify that. So I'm just going to type 6 and double quotes. That indicates inches. I'm going to hit enter, and there we have a 6-inch offset. Now, I also want to make a wall somewhere on the inside here, and it's not too important where right now, but I want to make a wall on the inside, an interior wall, and to do that, I'm going to use the line tool. So it's located over here, or as you might guess, it's a letter L on the keyboard. And notice as I kind of zoom along this interior rectangle, I'm trying to stay on the interior, I'll zoom in a little bit more. It snaps to that rectangle, but it also snaps somewhere else to the midpoint. So that's just something that's interesting, something to keep in mind. If I wanted to divide this room exactly in half, I could go right there, but I'm not going to. I'm just going to start here. I'm going to click once, and it'll snap parallel to that other edge, and there it snaps to that, and that looks pretty good. So this wall needs to have some thickness as well. Specifically, I want it to be 4.5 inches thick. So I'm going to click right here, and I'm going to make a line, and I'm going to type in let's try that again. Click once there, type in 4.5 inches, and hit enter. And it's made that line, and now if I mouse over, there's the end point of that 4.5-inch line. Here is the midpoint of that 4.5-inch line. So I'm going to zoom out, and I want to put a line exactly parallel to this line that's 4.5 inches away. And I can do that because I'm on the end point there. And you just got to be really careful to get it exactly where you want it. Right there looks good. So now I have two parallel lines that are 4.5 inches away from each other that are also parallel to these outside edges of my rectangle. Now, I don't necessarily need this line right here. I can delete that simply by using this select tool. I'm going to click it and hit delete on my keyboard. And I can do the same thing on this other side. I need to clearly zoom out a little bit. Use the select tool, click that, hit delete. Next, I want to pull that section that I just created, this outside shape, all the walls. I want to pull that up in something that we call extrude. In this software, it's called a push-pull tool. And I'm going to drag the walls up to a height of 10 feet. So that tool is right here. It can also be accessed by selecting P on the keyboard. And I want to select, again, you see those little dotted texture there to it, shading. That's what I want, not this, but this. I'm going to click. I've clicked it once and I've released the mouse. And I can drag it up. And again, if you look in the bottom right, it's going a certain amount. But I want to manually type in 10. Which, let's see, 10 feet. All right, and there we have it. We've successfully extruded that. I can see my house has walls. All right, my next step is to put in some doors, and specifically I want one door here and one interior door. So to do a door, we're just going to use the rectangle tool. And I could make a construction line or a line that I'll later erase to have a specific distance from this endpoint. But I don't need to do that. I'm just putting in a door. I just need to make sure it snaps to the bottom. And specifically, I want this door to be 36 inches wide by 7 feet or 84 inches tall. Oh, I didn't do something right. It looks like I did 36. Oh, I put an X accidentally. So I'm going to undo that and let's try that again. My rectangle tool, I need to do 36, comma, 84 or 7 feet, 84 inches or 7 feet. And that looks much better. All right, so I have my rectangular shape for a door. Next, I want to push-pull that so that it pushes in and extrudes away the material to get a door. So I'll zoom in a little bit. I'll use my push-pull tool. I'll click and I'll drag until I see offset limited to 6. I click that. We know this wall is 6 inches thick, so it limited that push-pull operation to 6 inches. So I just cut away the door opening. And if I zoom out and kind of orbit around, you can see that that is in fact an opening. If I were to keep on going with that extrusion, it would extrude something solid beyond that, and that's undesirable in this case. We didn't necessarily want that. So let's do the same thing for in here. So I'll select the rectangle tool, make a rectangle, and this door, let's make it 32 inches and comma 84 inches. Hit enter. There it is. I push pull tool. And here I want it to limit that offset to 4.5 inches because that's the thickness of this interior wall. And let's just orbit, make sure. Yeah, that's definitely going through. That's perfect. I can use the select tool to get rid of this line. I no longer desire to see that line. But that looks pretty good. I've got a door. Those look good. Let's add some windows next. Now, specifically, I want these windows to be terminate at the same height as this door. So one way I could do that is use my line tool, start in this corner, and draw this parallel line all the way to the edge. I'll later delete that, but I have it here just in case. And now I'll talk a little bit more about a construction line. Let's say I want a window to be right here, but I want it to start 36 inches away. I can use that line tool again from here to here, and I'm going to type in 36 inches, and it terminated somewhere. Let's see if we can find it. And I'm going to switch over to the rectangle tool because that's what I'll do next. That's the midpoint of that 36-inch rectangle. And there's the end. So here's my first window. And specifically, I want to make this, let's say, 24 inches by 36 inches. That looks great. And I'm going to do the same thing. So I'm going to go back to the line tool. I'll make another 36-inch line, and now go back to the rectangle tool, and there's the end point of that. So now we got 24 inches, comma 36 inches. Oh, looks like I messed up those dimensions. So I'll undo that, and I'll go back. And it looks like we got to do the width first, right? 24 inches, comma 36 inches. That looks better. Okay, so I've got these two windows. I can now get rid of my little construction line. So I'll use the select tool, select that line, hit delete on my keyboard. Oops, not that, but that line. There we go. So now I have the openings for what can become windows. So we'll use push-pull tool just like we did before to push that in by the desired amount. And let's take a look at that because I'm not confident that worked. It didn't. I messed that up a little bit. So let's undo. Try it one more time. Push-pull. Click. And sometimes you want to make sure it limits it to that 6 inches, which it doesn't seem to want to do. So let's rotate just a bit. Push, pull. Sometimes if you get this indicator on face, that means it's on that inside face and it's gone through. So it just takes maybe a little bit of reorienting or orbiting your canvas there so you can get it correct. On face, that looks good. And now if I orbit these, I can see through. Perfect. Next, I'm going to make these windows look like windows by adding glass. And that's kind of a simple operation. I'll use the rectangle tool, and I'll just frame the window that I have. And now it's like boxed in that window. And I'll do the same thing over here. I boxed in both those windows, but now I can actually change the fill of what that is. So if I go to Material, and I have this drop-down menu of all these different things, and specifically I want glass and mirrors. So maybe I'll use translucent glass sky reflection. That looks pretty good. I can click there, and now you can see I can still see through my glass to the other side, but it actually looks like glass. All right, and as you can see, the next thing I'm going to do here is add more windows. I'll add a couple windows here, one over here, and one on this side, maybe two on this side, something like that. I'm going to add some more windows, but you don't have to watch me do that. You can do that on your own. I'm going to go ahead and do it, and then I'll pick this back up in part 2 of this video.